Because I also believe that once you tell the universe what it needs to give to you, it'll get to getting it to you. But it almost has to construct a reality that may not be your current reality.
Right.
Which takes time.
Right. And it also probably has to construct a new you.
Yeah.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and riches blessing, everyone. Here we are at Take Back Your Mind. I am your host, Michael Bernard Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center, and I have with me today Ajit Nawalkha.
Yes, you got it.
But he likes to just be called Ajit because everybody messes up his name, but I don't think I did.
No, you did great. You did fantastic.
So let me tell you just a bit about him. You may know him already. He's not only the first multi-millionaire in his family, he's a groundbreaking entrepreneur, author, co-founder of Mindvalley and Evercoach, two of the world's leading platforms in personal growth and coaching. Since 2003, Ajit has dedicated himself to helping individuals and businesses achieve extraordinary success through holistic wealth strategies. He's the author of the best-selling books, Live Big, the Book of Coaching, and the Business Book of Coaching, which has collectively sold over 150,000 copies worldwide. And while we're speaking right now, some are already being sold at this moment. Ajit has been featured on prominent platforms such as Impact Theory, Mindvalley, Entrepreneur on Fire, What Drives You, Highest Self Podcast, Man Talks, Over and On With It, Gold Coast, and many, many more. Ajit's journey is a testament to the belief that you don't need to come from wealth to build wealth. Coming from a humble background, he grew up sharing a home with 23 other people in Jaipur, India. 23 other people. My God. Happily married with two small children, Ajit resides in Austin, Texas. His goal is to empower individuals to unlock their potential and live fulfilling, abundant lives. Give us a little bit of your backstory, Ajit. I mean, 23 people in one home.
Yes.
What's
Yes. So in India, we have a culture of living together with parents and grandparents. But my house also had my cousins and my cousin grandparents and everything. My parents didn't decide to have 23 kids. No, that was not the reason.
All right.
We were two brothers, but at the same point in time, we had extended families staying in the same house. So I grew up in a reality with a lot of abundance of love, because when you have a lot of people, of course, you have a lot of love, you have a lot of care,
right.
You have a lot of look out for each other. But you definitely don't have abundance of money, else you will have a bigger place.
Right.
So
it was a small place?
Smaller place. Yeah, we were 2 stories, but still, like, basically nobody had a room. Let's just say it that way.
Right.
There was no, like, my room or your room. It was the room. And the room was the room where you sleep in the night. You wake up, it becomes a drawing room because everybody who visits comes there. Mm-hmm. It becomes the dinner table when it's dinner time. It becomes the study room when you have to study.
It's multi-purpose.
It's a multi-purpose. Yeah, it was a mattress on the floor, and you just made the best out of it. That's kind of what the rooms looked like. And it was abundance of love, though. Like lots of love around, uncles, aunts, brothers, cousins, all the love that you can experience in your life. Lots of communication because of it, but money was tight. You can say that it wasn't an abundance of what do I feel like Ajit today, and you can have it. No,
it wasn't that.
It wasn't that.
That vibe.
No, that wasn't the vibe. And that's where I started. So around 13, 14, that's what I recall. My life took a turn because one of the evenings, the lack of space led to an experience of life that really kind of shook me and woke me up. Mm-hmm. So one of the evenings, an uncle was visiting from out of town. And when you don't have enough rooms, well, the kids' room also becomes the guest room.
Right.
So now we had one bed, which me and my brother were sharing, which was basically a mattress on the floor that me and my brother were sharing. And because the uncle was here, he was also sharing the same mattress. And because we are now 3 people sharing that mattress, I get the smallest end of the mattress.
Right.
Because I'm the youngest of all. And then my elder brother and then my uncle gets half of the mattress because he's the guest. In India, guest is, like God. And so we
Right.
treat them really as royally as we can. And so I had this little corner that I was sleeping in. And of course, I was really tight in there. And like brothers do, we were fighting about it, that space. And so I was kind of fighting him. He was fighting me. My mom storms out of her room. That is even a tinier room that her and my father shared. And she comes out of the room and says, Ajit, go to sleep. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to go to sleep, but there's no space. How am I supposed to go to sleep? There is no time. Like, look at the space that I have.
Right.
So like, Ajit, I said, go to sleep. I was like, how do I go to sleep? And now I'm fighting with my mother.
Right.
And take it with a pinch of salt. She loves me. My mother loves me a lot. But in that moment, comes across one tight slap across my face and saying, Ajit, go to sleep.
Right.
And I say, all right. And then I hold the pillow next to me. I put my face in the pillow and I'm crying. And when I woke up the next morning, I realized that my pillow was still wet. Which meant I had cried myself to sleep.
Right.
And that crying myself to sleep, that was the day that I first decided that never in my life will I be struggling for space. I should never be in this condition. This is no way to live. And that drove me very early on to learn about abundance and money. But when you grow up around reality that is not with a lot of abundance, often it's really hard to find people who can teach you anything about abundance.
Right.
You don't have access to information. At that time, there was no YouTube, there was no podcast like this. I couldn't download free information and just be like,
no Instagram.
Oh, I know. Yeah, there was nothing like that. We had no access to any of it. There was no good internet at the house for that matter. So I was like, okay, so how do I really learn this? So early on in my life, I got curious and I started to try to find people that have got a little bit more money than me, and then started to ask them questions and see what they do, observe their behaviors very early on in my life. And eventually it would lead me to an organization I'm now a part of, I became a part of, called Mindvalley.
Right.
So as I was going through the journey of my life, I did several roles in different companies, but very progressing really, really fast because I knew that I had to get out of that situation.
So you met Mindvalley. How old were you?
I was 25.
And you're still living in the home with the 23 people?
Yes. So I basically, here's what happened. So right at the back of finishing my education a little bit, I joined a media company, did a little gig with them because I was still curious. So I spent a lot of time, whoever would give me time as mentors, and learned really quickly about sales very well and became a high performer in the company. And because I was a high performer in the company, I got an opportunity when the company wanted to do something on the internet. That's how unsophisticated we were at the time in 2008, where they wanted to do something on the internet. We didn't know what it was. It was something on the internet. And so I started that venture for that company, bombed it completely, but learned the lesson of that I need to learn about internet. That's how I get out of this.
Okay.
And then there was a friend of mine who lived in Malaysia at the time, and he said there's this tiny startup that has really fun culture that you will love. And what they do is they'll pay you an intern salary, which is $400 a month. And what they'll give you a place where you can rent for $100 a month. So you'll be like 3 or 4 people living in that house. And what you get to do during that time is you get to travel and learn from them. And they're open to you learning and taking all that info with you. I was like, jackpot, because I wanted to learn internet. There wasn't enough money, but I was like, how long can it take, right? And how long can it take to learn anything?
So basically you have 300 because 100 is for rent.
100 for rent, yeah. and like taxes and all that I had nothing basically at the end of it. I maybe was saving $50 out of that, or 25. But I make that move. That was a little downgrade for the income I was making right before that, but I knew this was important to me because I knew this was a way out.
Yeah.
Or at least it felt like a way out at that time. So I started as an intern in 2008 December, and in January, the manager that was supposed to intern under got fired. And I got the role of the manager.
No training.
No training, because this is a startup. Mindvalley was not a real company at that time. I mean, it was a real company, but it was more like a bunch of websites put together. It wasn't what Mindvalley is today, which is a leading platform in itself. At that time, it was a tiny operation. And so I no training, nothing. No training to the extent that I was told, all right, you're the business manager right now, and give us the monthly report. And I give my monthly report, and they tell me you're $100,000 short. So you need to go make that $100,000 next month, else you don't have an internship or a job. So I am about to be fired from an internship that pays me $400 a month.
Short
Yeah.
of what you should have raised during that time?
What you should have made as a marketing, as a campaign for the business that you manage, which I just learned I'm managing 20 days ago, that I earned $400 a month to run.
Right.
And I was about to get fired from it because I have to make $100,000 more. But here is the beauty about abundance. Once you're back it against the wall, and if you are interested enough, you will find the right mentor, the right educator, and you'll find a path. Because I was so scared shitless of getting fired from an internship and to have to go back to that house where I live with 23 people. Not that I was living any better. Right now I was sleeping on a couch. That's how I wasn't any different. I was living with 3 other people in that house. But I was like, this is better than going back to the same reality that I was. So at least I'm going to try. So I started asking questions. I started going, how can I make $100,000? And so one of the person was really kind. He said, here's a set of DVDs. He gave me like a stack of maybe 30 hours of content to watch. He was like, watch this. You'll find your campaign in this. And I go ahead and I watched that overnight. Like
30 hours.
30 hours in a week, like just weekend, just back to back.
It.
I am literally like sleeping on the couch, waking up, watching it again, sleeping on the couch, waking up, watching it again. Because I was like, this is where my answer lies. I'm going to find the bloody answer. And so I find the answer. I run a campaign. And lo and behold, next month's meeting, I made an extra $120,000. The funny thing is, which Michael, I'm sure you will believe, but it's hard for most people to believe, is that in the history of the company until that point, nobody had ever made $120,000 or $100,000 as a campaign.
They were giving you an impossible task.
They gave me an impossible task, but the thing that was on my side is I didn't know it was impossible.
Right.
I think that's the key here, the key lesson I learned.
Well, that's a great principle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't think it's impossible, it's actually not impossible. It's very possible.
So let's go back to that for a second.
Yeah.
So this guy gives you a task to raise $100,000 or you're going to be fired.
Yeah.
And he knows no one has ever made $100,000.
Yeah.
So he's setting you up.
Yeah.
To succeed or fail.
Yeah.
What do you think he was setting you up for in his mind?
For success.
He thought you were going to do it?
Yeah. He didn't know if I was going to do it, but I know that he wasn't going to fire me if I didn't do it.
Right.
The reason he was doing it is because he in his mind, and this was Vishen, by the way, who did this.
Yeah.
And Vishen was, and he teaches this as a principle. He's like, set an impossible goal because otherwise you'll never discover your impossible.
Absolutely.
He says it more eloquently probably than I say.
No, absolutely. I
yeah.
teach the same thing. You absolutely believe in the impossible. I take it from Alice in Wonderland, where he talks about doing what is impossible. But that's exactly what you do, because you go out of your paradigm.
Yeah.
And you end up entertaining ideas and things that you never would even think about. Yeah. And then you have your back to the wall, fired to your feet, so your brain is percolating.
Yeah. And you find a direction, find an answer that otherwise there was no way.
So what happened? So what did Vishen say?
So Vishen was surprised. Everybody was surprised. It was like, this guy is a genius. And I was like, no, I was just stressed out. It's not I was genius. But I learned probably one of the key lessons of abundance, which is if you want to get something in life, any abundance or anything, you got to know what you want.
Right.
Because once he set my goal to saying you need to make $100,000 more in a month, figure out a path. If I can figure out a path, anybody can figure out a path.
Right.
And so that was my first lesson, one of my first lessons in abundance, which also got me really tuned into personal development at that time.
Right.
So until that time, the personal development book that I had read was Who Moved My Cheese.
I remember that book.
Yeah. So December 2008, when I'm getting this gig, the only personal development book I've read is Who Moved My Cheese.
I haven't heard about that book in years.
Yeah, so that's a book we give to kids. Yeah. It's a story about a rat and the cheese moving from the whole thing. My kids read that book now.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When he gave you this 30 hours of things to move, what was that?
It was different marketing training, and a lot of marketing training is personal development training.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's about psychology.
Right.
It's about how we think.
Yeah.
So there was a particular campaign that I had picked from hundreds of campaigns that I studied that were easy enough that I could write fast enough.
Right.
And I could implement fast enough.
Right.
So I just went ahead and implemented it.
Right. And so what were you selling?
I was a business manager of a program that used to be called the Silva Life System at the time.
That was like Silva
Mind
Control.
Silva Method, yeah. It was from Silva Mind Control.
I took that years ago too.
Yeah. So it was from that. It was an online program for that we were running, and that was that was my first gateway into personal development, and that kind of set me off on a path where I ended up becoming the CEO of Mindvalley in 6 years from then. So I went from intern to CEO by
Within 6
31.
years.
At 31, I was running the company already. I was I was kind of running the company even before that, but that's when I had the title of running the company. And then I had a little dark night of the soul, you can say, in a way where I realized that I had misunderstood abundance as money.
Say that again?
I had misunderstood abundance as money.
That's it.
So I said I had chased money so hard I forgot about everything else in life.
Right.
I had lost my friendship or disconnected from them. I disconnected from my parents. I had a then partner that we didn't really have a real relationship with. Just my health was crumbling. I was overweight. It was just basically I misinterpreted abundance as having
Many
just
people
a lot
do
of
that,
money.
though.
Yeah.
Many people are caught up in this Western consumerism and materialism. They actually think that's abundance.
Yeah.
They crave, they try to get, and they end up depleting their soul on so many levels.
Yeah.
So you stumbled upon this.
Yeah, I mean,
truth.
It was one of those New Year evenings. It is 2014 December. I was walking down the streets of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where the New Year's Eve is kind of like New York. There's like fireworks and all that stuff, and it was about to be New Year's time. And I was walking down with my friends, and suddenly I find myself alone by myself. I don't see no friends, and I feel like there was a spiritual intervention there, because what I see across the street is a lady in white, Asian-looking woman, and it is odd because it's almost like, you know, one of those ceremonial dresses.
Yes.
New Year's Eve, nobody wears a ceremonial dress in the middle of the street of Kuala Lumpur. So I was like, what is this lady doing here? And she's looking dead at me. And I'm just confused and lost, and I'm not sure where my friends are at, and probably a little bit drunk as well at that time, because I used to drink a lot at that time. She walks right up to me, looks dead into my eyes, and says, "Who are you?" And I thought maybe I know this person somehow, because, I mean, why would some random stranger ask me, who am I? I was like, I'm Ajit, and I'm confused and totally unsure. But she looks dead in my eyes again and goes, "Who are you?" I was like, I'm Ajit. I'm the CEO of Mindvalley. Maybe it's a Mindvalley reference. I have no idea who this woman is. And she looks dead in my eyes and asks again, "Who are you?"
Right.
And I couldn't answer that question, Michael. I couldn't. And by the time I could get my thoughts together, the woman disappeared. But she left me with this question of "Who are you?" that I couldn't answer. And I couldn't answer for the next year.
Why?
But that was the journey that started by a dark night of my soul, that I was like, if I can't answer the question, who am I? What life am I living?
Right. And that is the question. So do you think she was really there, or do you think that was something that was sent to you for your own growth?
I think it was sent to me.
So the woman may not even existed in this dimension.
No, it's very possible that it was just
like an angel, kind of.
Like an angel, like a message from the universe, as the kick that I needed to hear or see, because I wasn't aligned with what I really needed to do in my life. It's hard to explain. It's hard to really kind of go back to that. I remember the moment exactly as it happened, but it seems impossible that actually could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's another one of those impossible things.
Yeah.
No, I've had not that experience, but had similar experiences that, when trying to explain it to people, would be bizarre. But I know it happened. Yeah. And I know how it affected me. So is that when you learned the lesson that abundance was not necessarily money? Because you had abundance with 22 people. There was a lot of love, even though there was no money. Yeah,
but I didn't recognize that abundance. Now I say it was full of love. At that time, if you asked me, I would be like, this is torture.
Yeah.
I live in.
Right.
I have no space. Right. There's no silence. Right. I can't study. They want me to get good grades, but there was never silence in the house. 22 people. Right. How would you have silence? Some of them are kids. Somebody's talking. Somebody's doing something. So, and you're supposed to become an engineer, but how are you going to study when you have 23 people talking it constantly? Sometimes there are, you have so many people, you fight also sometimes, and some people are pretty aggressive in our house. Right. So we had all of those challenges too, but I couldn't see the abundance at that time. I only saw pain. Right. I can recognize there was a lot of abundance, because now when I reflect back on my life, I was like, what are you talking about, Ajit? You had the greatest aunts. They would cook the best meals for you. If mom wasn't there, they watched for you. You have cousins that you had a fun time with at all times. They were ready to play with you whenever you wanted. What is love? Love is about connection. I had connection all the time. Right. I had celebration all the time. Right. I couldn't see that at that time. Right. I recognize it today. So at that time, what happened was I went to the journey of who am I? And that journey took me down this path of self-discovery. Yes. And that's where I started taking in a lot more information than I had ever taken before. I was doing programs when I was running Mindvalley. but I was not doing them.
Mm-hmm.
I intellectually understood them, but I didn't do
You were
them.
kind of a passive observer, but not really involved.
Yeah, I could spit out the details. I could like, oh, this is what happens in this course and this is what you do.
Yeah.
But have you done it? Probably not.
Right.
So at that point, because I quit being CEO and I started to go inward and say, what is it that I really want from this life? Like, what does this mean? All of this living means. That journey also reintroduced the idea of abundance to me, where I said, I can have it all based on what I actually want. It doesn't matter what money, it doesn't matter what health, it doesn't matter what love or whatever it is, till the time I can define what I want in my life or be inspired by something, I can have it, and anybody can. And with that reintroduction, I had to first ask myself, what do I want?
Right.
What life do I want?
Right.
What's important and what's the cost of that thing?
Right.
Because you could choose. While we live we live in infinite possibilities, I do think there is a limitation based on the time that we live in, like amount of time that we get to have. If I have 20 waking hours, let's say in a day, if I invested all in creating money, when do I get to play with my kids? When do I get to have this conversation? When do I get to, do other things?
Right.
So there's a constraint of time that at least I haven't figured out how to kind of
priorities.
So you got to do
choices.
priorities. Yeah, you got to choice it. Like, hey, if abundance looks like a great time with your wife every day, then you find a way to keep that hour away. If it means you make $1 less, you make $1 less.
Right.
It's perfectly okay, because now you've defined your abundance. You've defined what you're chasing in life, or what you want life to give to you, what universe needs to give to you.
Right.
Because I also believe that once you tell the universe what it needs to give to you, it'll get to getting it to you. But it almost has to construct a reality that may not be your current reality.
Right.
Which takes time.
Right. And it also probably has to construct a new you.
Yeah.
Because you went through a dark night at this time.
Yeah.
So there had to be some inner changes that took place within you.
Yeah.
That made you a different Ajit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so true, because that's part of constructing the new reality.
Yeah.
Is to say, who do you need to be?
Right.
Like, if you want, like, I love my wife, I have a great time with her all the time, and we've been married 7 years and together 8 years now. And to be a partner of a powerhouse like my wife, you have to be a powerhouse yourself. You can't contain that energy by being somebody who is constantly challenged or fearsome, because she's a big energy. When she walks in the room, she's incredibly attractive, and you got to be a big energy to be able to handle that energy. Right. If you want abundance, but you also want to be able to spend time with your kids, you need to have a very different relationship with abundance. You can't associate relationship with abundance with hard work, or money with hard work. You can't have that relationship.
That's a good point right there. You should talk about that for a little bit. You don't have to associate abundance with hard work.
That's I think that was created as a narrative because in the times we come from, we had to work hard because work was going to a factory.
It was physical labor.
Physical labor. But we have evolved technologically, and humanity has always continuously evolved to make life easier. We just keep our old patterns because we think that's how we are supposed to live.
Right.
So, for example, most people, I'm not saying everybody that is listening to this conversation, but I would say about maybe 70 to 80% of people that will listen to this conversation are in what I would call intellectual work. They don't physically move things.
Right.
They are not in construction.
Right.
They are not actually, they're not paid by the movement of things. They are paid by a result. And if they can produce that result faster, their payment doesn't reduce, it actually increases. So what tends to happen is we have created the association of hard work pays you money. It's not hard work that pays you money. It's results that pay you money. It's the value generation that pays you money. The greater the value generation you have, the higher you get paid. And the value generation increases with every time you upgrade your skill.
Right.
So if today it's literally right now is the greatest example. You are anybody right now with some intellect. If you become a master of artificial intelligence, using it, not even developing it,
right,
you will be highly paid.
Right.
To not develop it, to just use it.
The same way, absolutely.
Because you are a higher skill level.
Right.
Right. If you become a coach, you will be highly paid individuals because that is something that is very much needed in the society right now. If you become anything that is a higher paying gig in your whatever economy you live in, right? If you're a doctor, you instead of treating yourself as a specialist, you move to be a manager of doctors.
Right.
You get paid more.
Right.
right? You start a company, you get paid even more because now you're creating even more value at a higher level. So it's a value scale, not work scale. For the matter, if you notice, more successful people work less and less.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is one of the, after talking to many, many successful people, I've found that they actually barely work. They talk most of the time, and most of their talks are chit-chats. They're just going, okay, what are you working on? What are you thinking? They're ideating.
They're in the idea
not
sphere.
doing anything.
They're in the idea sphere pulling.
Yeah, they're not sitting on a computer writing out anything, nothing at all. They might go into a season of it, but they're out of that season 90% of the time. At 10% of the time, maybe they're at a computer, but otherwise they're not. So what is so different? Different is because they learned how to upskill themselves and related money with value, not money with hard work. Money with hard work is the path to staying poor, because there's no way you can outwork anything.
Right.
In the near future, you can't outwork a machine.
Right.
Good luck trying to do that. Good luck trying to do that,
anyway.
right? Yeah, those jobs will disappear because machines, you can they don't have an off switch.
Right.
Right. They can keep working.
You got robots
you will
now
get
coming
tired.
up.
They're not gonna get tired.
Right.
And that's why it's important to note that you need to shift with society. Society is getting better. Income is getting better. We are making more money than we've ever made, but we feel more broke than we've ever felt. It's crazy.
And what is that a derivative of? Why do people feel that way?
It's the story and narratives that we do. So what I've found, at least in my
I know
experience,
there's a
of
big
coaching with
phenomenon of
people,
lack. People live in a consciousness of lack.
consciousness of lack. Yes, and it's created and inflicted because of this constant comparison that we live in as a world.
Yes.
Yes, it's so evident right now. So what I notice as I work with clients when we're working on their money stuff, we sometimes say, okay, let's look at some practical stuff. Is it really true what you're saying, right? So a lot of times people would come, Ajit, I'm not making any more money. I'll say, all right, let's take out your income statements. Let's look at it, right? I mean, numbers to numbers.
Right.
And often I would go, okay, so you started making, say, $10,000 a month or $8,000 a month, whatever you were doing a year ago, right? What's your lifestyle right now? So a year ago, your lifestyle was costing you $6,000. Now you're making $8,000. Your lifestyle is costing you $8,500.
Yeah.
So you or $8,000 or $7,800.
Right.
It's like
You're spending more than coming in.
yeah, if you keep chasing because you want to look good,
Yeah, absolutely.
and there is no point, you would actually become in surplus.
That's right.
And so of course you feel lack because
Right.
you're chasing the next big guy or big girl,
Right.
right? It's a funny story. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she goes, there's a friend of hers, she's like a 30-year-old girl, lives in Topanga and pays a rent of $25,000. I was like, wow, that's great. I mean, she must be making millions of dollars
Right.
to pay $25,000 as rent to her house that she lives in. This is almost,
Right.
you're talking
Somebody's
about
making
$300,000.
that money, not her.
Yeah. No, she makes $300,000 and her rent is $300,000. So guess what?
She's broke.
She looks rich,
Right. But
but
not.
she's broke.
Yeah.
She's probably in debt,
Yeah.
right? Because if you make $300,000, you spend $300,000, unless daddy is paying the bill, like how or mama is paying the bill,
Right.
how are you actually sustaining? You're probably running a credit.
Right.
Of course, you can act rich, but being rich is different than acting rich. If you constantly compare, you will stay in lack. If you constantly question what's abundance for me,
Right.
and am I living in alignment with that,
Right.
you will always be abundant.
Right. I had a very similar experience too. I had a man coming from counseling, and he wanted prosperity, wanted me to pray for his prosperity. I did the same thing. I said, well, how much do you actually make? You know, he was in the wealth building community. You know, so he was making $300,000-$400,000 a year. I said, that's pretty good. And he got a nice bonus at the end of the year. And I said, okay, so you want more money. Are you in debt or something? And he had all these suits in the closet. He was buying suits every time he got a paycheck and all this stuff. I said, you don't need to make more money, man.
You need to spend less.
You need to spend less.
Yeah.
Can you wear all these suits?
Yeah.
You know, it looks like you bought the 3 of the same suits. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So I said, you need to manage your money. You don't need to just make more money. Why don't you manage what you have first?
Yeah.
And then, upgrade.
Yeah.
So I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's
I can
a
see him in my
constant,
mind
yeah.
right now. I know him. I know who he is.
Yeah.
He's done a lot better now.
Yeah. But it's a constant in our society because of constant comparison with each other. It's like we're always going, oh, but that person's doing this. I should be doing that to feel happy. No, that's that person.
Yeah, I got to drive this kind of car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take us anywhere. And because we stay in that world, it has created this narrative that America is broke, but America is the wealthy. We are making more the American economy has doubled since the last recession of 2008. That's in 14 years. We have, I think, 2x'd, or at least 1.8x'd our economy size. There is no way America should be broke. Nobody in America should be broke. No, there's no way Americans are broke. There's no way anybody should be broke in America. The only reason you're broke is because you're not taking financial education for yourself. You haven't said, how are these numbers rolling up?
And
it's not true for everyone, of course.
Financial literacy, along with some of the principles you're talking about. You know, because people are in a lack consciousness, and they actually believe in scarcity. You know, and those are the principles that are governing their life. But when you talk about abundance, and you're mentioning it in terms of your family and the love, what can a person do to actually focus more on the abundance rather than on the appearance of lack? What kind of things did you do, and what kind of things can individuals do?
Well, there are certain principles to know, and certain principles that you can tap in, but you can also look at data. So I'll start with data because it's more practical, because sometimes people go, oh, what do I hold on? This is just stuff you're saying. I'm like, no, let's look at it, right? In 1980, America had, I want to say 7 billionaires.
7.
7 billionaires. In 2021, there were 300 billionaires in America. 300 or 700 billionaires, something insane, like 10 times the number of billionaires, right? There's that money that came from somewhere in the last 40 years. Right. When you were not making money, 700 of them found billions of dollars to add to their wealth. And average American salary has gone up dramatically. We have doubled the economy, almost doubled the economy, if not doubled the economy, since the last recession, which means in the last 14 or so years, 15 or 16, last 16 years, we have doubled the amount of GDP we have, which means the circulation of money has doubled. Somebody made that money. Right? Where is all this money going? It's got to be somewhere. The thing that we need to understand is that money has always been abundant.
Right.
There's infinite abundance present at all time. The challenge we have is we relate abundance with an unconscious measure, or just a measure of a random number we threw in the air. Right? So more often than not, if you ask an American, because millionaire is a term here and people really love that term. People, if I say, hey, how much money you want to make? I'd love to have $1 million. I'm like, okay, what does $1 million do for you? Let's write it out, right? And when they write it out, most of their dreams are not their dreams. It's somebody else's social media profile. Because if I ask, okay, you want this car, what does this car feel like to you? Oh, I don't know. I was like, then why do you want this car? Like, especially the people who like Lamborghinis, I was like, have you ever sat in one? It's a terrible car. It's a terrible car.
Designed interestingly.
It's designed interestingly. It's hard to get in. It's hard to get out. It's like super loud. It doesn't. You can never really hit the rail pedal and really enjoy the speed. Why do you need that car? You live in LA. You don't need a Tesla. Get a Tesla. It goes as fast as you can possibly get. So, but the cost is 3 times less. Suddenly, you're not needing to make $1 million to get your dream car. Your dream car costs you $100,000 or $80,000 or whatever the number is. But the point really is that we're not present to our dreams. We are present to somebody else's dreams or somebody else's perceived reality, and that creates lack, and that also keeps us in a state of lack. But if we get present to our dreams, I've done this exercise many times. I'm not saying it'll be true for everyone, but I would say for about 60, 70, maybe even 80% of people that are listening to this, if you write your dream of how much you want to make, your dream lifestyle, your perfect day, write down your perfect day, that this is how I want my day to unfold. This is the kind of work I want to do. This is the kind of people I want to hang out with. This is the kind of life I want to live. It's achievable in the next 5 years, but you got to be able to write it down.
So it goes back to what you want. Be able to describe that. It goes back to who are you? You know, you have to discover that you're more than the imprints of society or parents or education or miseducation. So that's going to take some deconstruction for the new construction to take place. It means that, I mean, based on what you're saying too, it means that you're going to have to shift your awareness into the definition of abundance. You're going to have to free yourself from the constraints of lack, or scarcity, I should say. Lack and scarcity. So you're basically sharing another way of the road to transformation. You know, otherwise people are going to go out and just try to rob a bank. You know, I'm going to get this. Really, I'm going to steal from somebody. You know.
Well, it doesn't feel abundant. Most of the people will say no.
Right.
And most does not feel abundant. And most people feels like taking.
Most people that steal and end up going to jail, they said the average thief in their lifetime makes $78 cents an hour.
No, for real?
It's something like that because they factor in jail time, attorneys, getting out of jail, stealing again. They make approximately 78 cents.
That is an amazing data. Like if you think you can steal your way to success, you're looking at a wage of 78 cents an
and
hour.
if you're doing white collar crime, and then you end up in the federal pen, hanging out, playing cards with people.
Yeah, but still, it's not a life worth.
No.
Like you got to ask yourself, what's the life worth living?
Right.
Like, do you want to have fun? Like abundance. That's why it's important to define abundance beyond the frame of reference of money, because and that's why it's a beautiful Jim Carrey quote, I think, where he says, I want you all to have as much money that you ever wanted to have, so you can realize that that's not where happiness is.
I saw that recently again. They just played it somewhere.
Yeah, that's not where happiness is.
It's not where it is,
that's not what makes you feel happy.
I have counseled those people, many of those individuals that have tons of money, unhappy, sick, unhealthy, got plenty of money.
Yeah.
But they don't really have abundance.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are afraid to even circulate the money to have a good time. They won't even go out and go take a vacation or go travel around the world or help some people or anything. So I understand. So that's a lack consciousness.
Yeah, that's lack consciousness. Absolutely. Yeah. So you can have a lot of money and still feel lack.
Right.
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
It's a security thing as well. Like we feel so insecure in our lives that we feel like it'll all go away one day. Even if you had it, it'll go away. And because you feel like it'll go away, you can't really ever enjoy it.
Right. There was a woman in our community that she's pretty wealthy, but very tight. And then one day she got so inspired, she wrote a $50,000 check, which was a lot for her. It wasn't a lot for her, but it was a big check she'd ever written. And she was so scared. And when she did it, she had so much energy flood her body because it didn't even touch her principal. That was 50,000 was nothing. You know what I mean? That she became, she became a donor and did some very powerful things, not just at Agape, but some other places as well. But she tapped into abundance after that. And things began to flow for her in a very powerful way. And she actually healed a disease in her body, now that I'm thinking about it.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Giving is a great way to create abundance in your life. In whatever way you can. It doesn't always have to be money. If you don't have any, or if you're currently not capable of signing a check, even if you just give, I think it creates such a beautiful vibration in you because it puts you in a state of love. And I think once you're at a state of love, you can create anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely. You're dealing with asking these questions. Who do I want to be? What do I want? If you ask, how can I give? Then the universe answers that question as well.
Yes.
It'll show you what you can give. It doesn't always have to be money.
Yeah.
But once you think of yourself as a giver, then abundance starts to flow. But if you think of yourself as a miserly person that's always chasing and trying to get, you're blocking the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like to use the word resilience too as a part of the path.
Yes. So I like resilience because it is something that allows for us to understand that the path, while is straightforward in a way, like understanding of it is straightforward in a way, the walking of it is not so straightforward. So the understanding is pretty straightforward. Right? There's infinite abundance. You're always fairly compensated, which means you're going to get as much as you deserve for now until you create more value in the world. If you give, you get. Not with the expectation, but you will get. Whenever it's time for whatever it is.
It's a law.
Yeah, it's going to happen always. All these things are true. And so if you can practice them every day, if you put yourself in a state of love or above, you will always be rewarded for it because you can expand your consciousness a lot more and you operate from a place psychologically and spiritually that universe is just bending to whatever realities you want till the time they're fair. And so because of all of those things, it is very easy in the understanding, but it's very hard path to walk. Because when you're walking that path every day, you will be hit by something saying, oh, but I could just take that. And that, for lack of a better term, you can call it the angel and the demon talking, right? Angel saying, give, it's fine.
Heaven and hell talking to you.
And demon saying, no, take, get, you know? Or if I give, I must get, right? And that everyday talk that happens everyday action that you will take, not everything's going to land. Sometimes you're going to get a win, sometimes you're going to get a loss. But if we don't have the understanding that a loss is not a loss, it's a path to build.
Yes.
Like my dark night of the soul was not a years lost. It was the thing that built me to be here today.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have other challenges in life. They will be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right? But I need to come from the approach of that I am building every time when I am seeing a challenge in my life and it feels like a downslope.
Right,
It's a rebuild to a field that allows me to create more.
Yeah. It's not a loss, it's a learning.
It's learning.
Yeah. What am I learning here? It's going to change your character. And then your character creates a different attitude, and your attitude creates a whole different destiny.
Yeah.
So you're looking at challenges totally differently.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are pleasure seekers. They're trying to run away from any challenge.
Yeah.
So they're running away from their gifts.
Yeah.
And they're running away from the activation of latent powers that only can come out if you go through a challenge, like you discovered in your dark night.
Yeah.
Those are nasty. I mean, I've been through a couple. They're nasty.
Yeah.
But I'm not who I am without that.
Yeah.
That's
what builds you.
Yeah. And one of my books, Spiritual Liberation, I think it's the last chapter of my book, Dark Night of the Soul. And the publishers didn't want it in there. They said, don't put that in there. It's going to scare people away. I said, no. This is a part of the small print of transformation.
Yeah.
You're going to go through a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
You're going to have to discover yourself at a deeper level. And then, like the caterpillar, becoming a butterfly, you're going to come out differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to make a stronger metal, it's got to blend with other metals. And for that, they both have to go through fire.
Yeah.
Right. And for that, that's your dark night of the soul in a way. There's a version of us that is always unfolding, but sometimes for it to unfold, we must go through something that feels like hell.
Right. As long as you keep going.
You
Don't
just
pitch a
gotta
tent.
Don't pitch a tent. Yeah, no. And some people love that attention when it comes to it. Oh, I'm in hell right now, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be with you here.
Right.
And they start to celebrate the hell. No, that's not the point of it.
No,
the point is to get out of it.
Right. You're going through hell.
Through hell, not living in hell.
And changing. Yeah. So let me ask you this: the rest of your family, are they out of that 22?
Yes, I brought my immediate family out. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to have abundance, was not just for myself. I wanted my parents to be out of that house.
Right.
Because they, again, I find them really loving and all of that stuff. I wanted my brother to be out and all of that stuff.
So you basically helped them out of there.
Yeah, at 29, I bought a house for them. That was my life dream. My life dream was, and I had said maybe until I will be like 40 or 50, I will finally get them a house and they'll be out of that house where I grew up. I was able to do that at 29. So 29, I bought them a house. They live in a beautiful apartment that they like, that they chose themselves, and customize it to their desires. And they live there now.
And they're very appreciative of you and celebrate your success. And
they absolutely celebrate my success. But what my parents always did well, I think, is they do practice unconditional love, which is even when they didn't agree with things that I was doing. Like when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I was ending a 6-year relationship. And they were like, we don't necessarily believe in that because they're Indians. We don't believe in divorce.
Were you married
and
at the time or
separations.
just a girlfriend?
We were. You can say it was more like a relationship. It was.
And they
we
said,
didn't
no.
really legally
Why are you
marry
leaving her?
Yeah, they were like, no, it's like we don't separate
don't do
from
that.
partners. We don't do that. We stick it out. And that is their story. And I understand their story, but they were like, but if that is true for you, then that is true for you.
Right.
And we're not gonna fight you on it, but we'll just tell you the perspective. So they still celebrated me even when I was doing things that is not in alignment with them. So they have been very, very loving parents for sure. Even if they fought and everything, of course. Like every time, like I'm also a crazy person, right? Life's going great, and I say no, it's not great enough. And so I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and they're like, why?
That's called crazy sane.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips on how people can actually break free from their lack consciousness?
So for me, I like to look at 3 levels of wealth, or 3 levels of money, or 3 levels of abundance, however you want to say it. The first is always practical, because that's the easiest to achieve. Practical is looking at a budget or making one.
Yeah.
And saying, where am I spending the money? Can I save a little bit?
Right.
Can I invest a little bit?
Right.
Even when I was making $400 a month, like I said, I was saving $25 and investing it in money market.
And many people would go into debt at $400 a month, and you actually saved a tiny bit.
Yeah, because I said you live under your resources.
Yeah.
You don't have to live a life to make somebody else feel like you're living your life. You live a life that you can afford.
Don't go into debt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't go. No, absolutely. I've never gone into debt. I will only take leverage debt, which is basically now as a wealthy person you can talk about this. It's like I take debt to make more money, not to actually take debt.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of how I approach. But when you're just starting out or you're in a level where you're barely scratching surface, don't take that. I don't think anybody needs it. You take it because you fall for the trap of the emotion of that moment.
Right.
But you don't actually
repeat that sentence. I love that.
You fall for the trap because you're falling for the emotion of that moment.
Absolutely. That's true.
Yeah. So that I would say, just stay away from that trap. Do very practical, it's actually not hard to do. It is hard to do until you put it on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. In your mind, it's very difficult. You will never think that you can actually save money, but if you put it on a piece of paper, really evaluate and negotiate. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that I suggest people in America to do, because nobody does it, is negotiate. Mm-hmm. America is the easiest country to negotiate in, and nobody does it. I don't know why. In India, we are just taught to do it. We negotiate everything.
You know what? I negotiate when I go to regular malls and store.
You totally can.
I just say, I'll say something like, I want the ministerial discount.
Yeah.
And they say, we don't have that. I said, well, you can do it now. Just make it up.
And they do it.
And they will go talk to somebody and they come and say, we can give you 15% or something. I said, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. I have the funniest story I have of negotiation, because even I learned how much you can negotiate in America, is because I was about to have my first child. And as we were having our child, my wife decided we were going to have home birth. Yeah. And so we planned everything for the home birth, and of course, last minute everything goes wrong. It was in LA. We were living in LA at the time, and so we had to rush out to the doctor as our backup doctor. But he wasn't in our area; he was all the way in Compton, in the MLK hospital.
Right.
So we go there and we get the delivery done and everything, and when we come back, comes the bill. And the bill is $25,000.
Right.
And I was like, babe, does it cost that much money to have a baby in America? We were there for one night. It wasn't like, oh, it took a month there or something. We were not on a fancy vacation. What is 25 grand? She's like, hold on. I'm not paying 25 grand for having a baby. So she calls the hospital, and like an hour into the conversation, our bill becomes like $1,500 or something. I was like, holy cow, how on planet Earth did the hospital think I'm going to send a $25,000 bill? And Nita, my wife, says, no, people pay it. People go in debt to pay it. They don't call.
They bank on people paying it or going to debt and paying it on a monthly basis.
Yeah. So my wife was just like, no, I just called. I was like, I don't have the money. We had the money, but she was like, no, I don't have the money. And they kept going, no, then maybe you pay 20 grand. No, don't have the money. 18 grand. No, 15. No, 20. No, $1,500. That's what we paid.
I got 15.
Yeah, I have 1,500. Like she started with, I have $1,000 in my bank account. I can pay you all of that. 15 is what we settled on. But that was my lesson of reminding myself, no, it's not only in India. It's negotiable anywhere.
I agree.
You can, and then ever since I've negotiated salaries, I've negotiated contract. You can negotiate anything.
Yeah.
So that's the practical tip. That's the first level. That's the easiest level. The second level, if you have faith, and I assume that your audience has more faith than an average American.
Yeah.
So that's why your second level will be spiritual. Otherwise, it's the hardest realm to get to, because most people don't have faith. They don't have hope. They don't have faith, but your audience will have it. So then it's spiritual level. Spiritual level is understanding that there is infinite abundance.
Yes.
That there is, you are paid fairly. Don't worry about it. You will upskill yourself, and then you will be paid more, right? Which is, again, one of the reasons why people stay in lack, is because they don't think they're being fairly compensated. Everybody is fairly compensated. Universe does not do a bad job in your compensation, but you need to accept it so you can move on from it.
Yeah. So instead of complaining, which keeps you in the rut of comparison and lack, this is what I have.
Yeah.
Let me create my budget around this while I up-level my value.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it will put you in the path of growth. Because now you'll say, how do I up-level my value? Now you will create a path for it.
Right.
Otherwise, what do you say? Well, my boss, he's a total, he's not paying me because of.
Right.
And now you're in this cycle of just pain and crying.
Right. The corporation is not doing me right.
Yeah. No, you're always fairly compensated. You just not created enough value or a higher value. The day you do that, you will be compensated more. Right. If you accept that universal law, or principle, whatever you want to call it, but if you accept the universal principle that you are paid absolutely fairly, and the only thing that you can do is to accept it and move on from it, you would recognize that you can get out of lack so fast.
Right. Yeah, you're moving people out of complaining.
Yes.
Which is a drain.
Yeah, complaining doesn't help. Yeah. You're not in a good state.
Yeah.
And the final is a psychological level, which is what usually is a little bit easier for people, but in this community, I think might be a little bit harder, because you have to work with your mind and you have to work with your thoughts on a daily basis. Actually, your podcast listeners probably not so hard because this literally said upgrade your mind. But again, this is one of those difficult things. So what I've learned is every day we have thoughts that are basically messages from our past.
Right.
And then every day we have fears, which are our projections into the future.
Right.
And both of them are actually meaningless.
Right.
They are both actually made up
Right.
because it's a story. Right. So the more you remove your thoughts and more you remove your fears or build an understanding around it, or what I call organize your mind around it, is to say, is my past thought actually true? Or it's a story that I learned or a story that I told myself enough time that I realized that that's the truth of life. It is not the truth of life.
Right.
Remember that story when I said my mother slapped me?
Right.
That had built a story in my mind that my mother doesn't love me.
Right.
Until I recognized that that's a story I've told myself based on one event.
Right.
I'd forgotten all the events where she pawned her jewelry to get me through conferences sometimes, that she stayed up for me in the night to make me fresh food so I sleep with nutritious meal. I forgot that she was the first person who put me on stage when I was a kid saying, no, he dances really well, he should be up on stage. It was for a dance performance, but it's still, like, she was the first person who exposed me to the idea of you can be on stage.
Right.
She has supported me through my hardest times. I forgot all of that.
Right.
And what I
You
remembered,
took one slither.
my mother hates me.
Right.
She doesn't love me. She loves my brother because of one event that I created enough.
She's trying to slap some
around.
sense into you.
Yeah. Well, now she doesn't. But she should have.
Back in the day.
Totally back in the day, she should have. But that's kind of how we do. That's how our thoughts are.
Right.
And then every single day, if you focus on your emotional state, and we talked briefly about that, and bring it above love. There's a gentleman called David Hawkins.
Yeah, he was a friend
map
of mine.
of consciousness. Yeah, he created the fantastic map of consciousness. I love
we
that.
did conferences together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh yeah, he was a beautiful guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to Sedona and we used to do stuff together.
Yeah.
And he loved being around me because his wife would say, "Be around Michael," because his energy would get all high and everything.
Yes.
No, he was a beautiful mystic.
Yeah, beautiful work he is. I wouldn't call myself a scholar on it because he has a lot of work to read. Yeah,
10 books,
thick,
you know.
And big
40,
books
50
too.
years of kinesiology studies.
Exactly. But I love his map of consciousness. It's easy to understand. Stay in the state of love or above.
Right.
Love, joy, peace. That's the states you want to be in. And whatever gets you to that state. Meditation gets you to that state. Do it every day. Thoughts get you, whatever state.
Go into nature, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're actually vibrating at a higher level.
Yeah.
And I like to say, like the universe doesn't understand Farsi or English or Spanish. It understands frequency.
Yes.
So when you're vibrating at that level,
yeah.
But you have to. That's the resilience.
Yeah.
And the consistency you're talking about.
Yeah, you got to stay with it because the more you stay in the vibration of love or above, thoughts and fears go away.
Yeah.
Like any thought that restricts you, it's not, because you're like, it's all love.
Right. It's all love.
Fear, it's all love.
See, this is science, people.
Yeah, this is totally science.
This is real science.
David R. Hawkins did it. I'm just repeating it.
you can do a kinesiological study or biofeedback and actually measure the amplitude of your thought. And a thought that emerges from a field of lack, fear, hate, doesn't vibrate as high as a thought that's emerging from a field of unity and of love, gratitude, thanksgiving. So listen to this guy here. Ajit, he's taking you on a flight.
Well, I am standing on the shoulders of giants. So yes, so I think that work is incredible psychologically. You can shift your thoughts and your fears, or not rid of them, but kind of take control of them.
Yeah.
If you stay in a state of love or above. So every day, how can you get yourself to a state of love or above? Look at the emotion. Look at how and what gets you there.
Right.
Like you said, going out in nature. It could be a great conversation. Could be good music, like music with good lyrics, not violent lyrics, like nice lyrics that put you in that state. And stuff like that. Like meditation is great. There's so many ways. Coming to agape is going to put you in a state of love or above.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do stuff like that, and I think you can really change Black or any mentality you have around anything.
And you are an example.
Yeah, I think so. Well, Michael, I've come from like the background that I've come from. I've traveled and lived across 4 different countries. I last checked, and this is just so that and this is not me boasting. This is for anybody to recognize that if I can do it, you can. So I'm saying it with all the humility I can. I tracked my income, and I tracked that coming from $400 a month, even if you start the journey from there, today, if you take my annual income, it's in the 0.5% of Americans.
0.5%.
Of Americans.
Yes.
Which is the highest earners in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So I am probably in 0.1% of the world if I had compared to the world, because world
Yeah, there's a lot of
income
people
is
living
a
in
lot more
poverty
people.
making,
Yeah.
making $1
So-
a week.
And if I can do it,
Right.
coming from really like I'm not a scientist, guys. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a doctor. So all
But
of
you're
the
Indian. You're supposed to be an engineer.
Yeah,
That's
what
what
I'm
your
saying.
mother and father
It's
wanted.
like- no, but that's what I want to say. Hey, listen, I am Indian, but I'm none of those stereotypicals. Like I got no hotels. I got no backing. I am not running the 7-Eleven, selling money
You're
of
funny,
them.
man. You're funny.
I am not a doctor. I'm not an engineer. I am a guy who has a really terrible degree in commerce, which basically, if you don't want to study, you do in India. And
A degree in
I've
commerce.
just stayed at this education of personal development. Honestly, mostly that's what has rewarded me mostly.
Well, I think that's what you're saying. If they develop themselves,
yes,
they'll add more value to them, and then the universe will compensate you.
absolutely.
You know, be a better you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Universe is ready. Universe wants to, but
Yeah.
stay with it. You
Yeah.
can't do it one day and next day be like, all right, I did it one day, it didn't happen.
Right.
It won't.
No,
like
that's where the resilience comes in.
yeah, if you've had a lack mentality for 30 years of your life, 3 days of you thinking differently is not going to change anything.
Right.
Like I will close with this funny story because there was an event I was coaching at, and there's this lady that stands up and is like, Ajit, I've been doing this stuff. I have been your student for a year now. I'm doing all of this and it doesn't work. I was like, okay, what stuff doesn't work? And she gives one of the abundance principles. She's like, I've been doing this every day and it's not working for me. I was like, how long have you been doing it? She goes, well, it's been 3 months, Ajit. It's been 3 months.
Three
I've
whole
been
months?
practicing it every day. I was like, the belief you had before, how long have you had that? 30 years. I was like, you want to reprogram 30 years of you thinking everything is lack in 3 months, a little bit of practice, and you complaining about it? Like, it's not going to happen. Give
Right.
yourself, here's the principle. If you're given 30 years of you talking yourself down, give yourself 30 months of talking yourself up.
Right.
And then we'll talk.
Absolutely.
It will change.
Yeah.
It changes every single time. I've tested so many times, thousands of people, one-on-one coaching, group coaching.
Yeah.
It works every single time. You may not see it immediately, but it happens.
But it happens. You're talking about a way of living, is what you're
Yes.
speaking about. What is your go-to practice when you lose your mind temporarily?
It's always meditation. Meditation is the most gentle way to get there.
Yeah.
I think.
That's my fundamental.
Yeah.
So listen, Live Big, the book of coaching, the business book of coaching. Those are the books that he has put his heart and soul and energy into. You can find him where?
You can find me on Instagram at Real Coach Ajit if you're looking for just quick education. But if you want to go deeper and you want to read one of these books, actually Live Big, I just bought the rights back from my publisher. I'm giving it away, the digital copy of it free, not the physical, but digital copy completely free. You can go download livebig.com and you will get a free copy. Just sign up for it and they'll send you the copy. So that's a book that you can get for free.
He's giving it away for free.
Yeah.
He's circulating.
Yes.
But what I want you to do, I want you to read it.
That's the important piece.
And
It's a
then
very
find
important
something
piece.
in that book that you practice and become consistent in. Ajit, thank you for coming in, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Peace and blessings, everyone. You have been listening to Take Back Your Mind, and you might as well subscribe. You might as well tell your friends about it. And we'll talk to you later. Peace and blessings. Dynamic Blessings, welcome back. This is our moment to go into our inner sanctuary, our fortress of inner solitude, where we come to an awareness that as we shift our perception, we shift our attitude. So solitude shifts your attitude, which shifts your character, which creates a better destiny. So we're going to meditate together. And because I just had an opportunity to have a conversation with my friend Ajit, and we're talking about abundance, we're going to have a few moments of meditation around not just the thought of abundance, but the feeling of abundance. Because the feeling provides the healing, which is a revealing of your true essence. So I invite you to become still at this moment. Become quiet, become still. Close your eyes. Have your hands facing upward. And just for a moment, as you breathe in through your heart chakra. Breathe out through your heart. touch the heart space. Breathe in through the heart. Breathe out through the heart. Once again, touch. Breathe in through the heart. Breathe out. And as we're turning within in this moment, connected to our heart space, I want you to remember a moment in which all of your needs were met and you felt like it. That you were living in a feeling tone of abundance, harmonizing prosperity, but primarily, all of your needs were met. You had no want for anything. And it doesn't matter what your chronological age was when this was occurring. It could have been when you were an infant, when you were 5, when you were 7, 15, 27, 33, 47, 56. Doesn't matter what chronological age you were. Just remember a moment in your life where you had the feeling, wow, all of my needs are met. Now, if it's difficult for you to remember such a moment, imagine it. Imagine what it feels like to have all of your needs met. No scarcity, no lack, no limitation. All needs met. So whether it's an activation of the mystic chord of memory, or whether it is the right use of your imagination, feel that all of your needs are met. Feel the feeling tone of abundance. Now allow for your awareness to embrace that feeling. So you are aware of and you are feeling into all needs met. Abundance is the order of my day. All needs met. Abundance is the order of my day. All needs met. Abundance is the order of my life. I live in abundance. And the feeling tone of all needs met. Feel that. Be aware of that. Feel into the frequency of all needs met for another couple of seconds. The feeling tone of abundance, prosperity, all of your needs are now being met. Feel what that feels like. It's from this consciousness of ever-expanding abundance that we give thanks that all of our needs are met right now, and that every single thing is working together for our good, and it's happening right now. And so it is. Slowly open your eyes. Carry this feeling into your day or evening. And if you lose it temporarily, breathe through the heart, feel that your need is met, and keep on walking. Have a beautiful day. Peace and blessings. I truly hope that you are enjoying Take Back Your Mind podcast. The Take Back Your Mind podcast is sponsored primarily by the Agape International Spiritual Center. In other words, everything that you see in terms of the staff that puts this together, the editing, the equipment, all of this is sponsored by our Agape International Spiritual Center. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'm inviting you to support the sponsor. Support Agape. Simply go to agapelive.com and make a donation. And say in the donation that you are supporting the podcast. It allows us to keep broadcasting. It allows us to keep putting these magnificent moments together with these wonderful people that I get to interview. We keep having the possibility of updating the equipment that's necessary and providing the wonderful content that many of you are writing in and saying, I really love the podcast. Support the podcast. Support the sponsor. Agape International Spiritual Center. agapelive.com. You can also text to donate. You can text the word give to 424-321-6243 and put podcast so that we know that you're really supporting this wonderful podcast. Our secondary sponsor is Adaptozen, Adaptozen. This is my superfood greens. It's nutritionally dense because I teach spirit, mind, and body. We want our body temples to be healthy. So one of the products is my superfood greens. You can go to NutraRise.com. Those three little lines you see, you hit those three little lines and you'll see Adaptozen. There's two products, my superfood greens and a product called Elevate, which are organic mushrooms for your health. You can put both in your smoothies so that you have main ingredients for the health of your body temple. These are our sponsors. Primary sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center. Secondary sponsor, Adaptozen. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be wise. Circulate and share. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in Taking Back Your Mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.